It's really exciting to be here. I'm also, like Amelia, very passionate and excited and interested in democracy and public involvement and adult education. And so it's really exciting to work for an organization which is the Center for Public Involvement. And I'm not going to bore you with long details about the Center for Public Involvement, but I will tell you just a little bit about it before I start. So I will talk just briefly about the center. I want to give you an example of one project we've undertaken, which was a citizen panel on the budget, and some similarities to the work that Peter's doing. We've done a number of projects since, other citizen panels, and are implementing with the city right now a citizens jury as well. So talking to you this afternoon about some deliberative citizen engagement that we do. And also then, but more importantly, how we've evaluated, and some criteria I think are really important for assessing whether these processes have impact, and then some lessons learned from the budget. But I'd like to acknowledge the people who invited me here and organized this, and also some of my colleagues who are here from Faculty of Extension, Christy Schultz and Dr. Yoshi Iwasaki as well. So just thought I'd start with a photo. So what is the Center for Public Involvement? And the Center for Public Involvement is a partnership, a formal partnership, 50-50 governed and managed and funded by the City of Edmonton and the University of Alberta. So came about as part of this, broad conversation between policymakers, scholars, practitioners about democracy, about some of the challenges of public involvement, about cynicism, distrust, lack of legitimacy on the side of citizens, on policymakers, on decision makers, but also seeing that internationally there was a lot of opportunities and excitement and possibilities of citizen participation. So in this photo, and I think this photo just demonstrates what the center is trying to do, it's trying to contribute to that conversation and that dialogue about democracy and citizen involvement. And it's also trying to provide some leadership and resources to address some of these issues and create a structure like the center where you can bring together, and I think this is a critical need in citizen involvement, to bring together policymakers, administrators, practitioners, and scholars all in one to design and experiment and research and learn more about, to advance practice and scholarship of citizen involvement. So this picture, obviously, there I am. And this is our first big event that the center undertook. And so in the middle, some of you may recognize John Gastel right here. He's a leading scholar in the field of deliberative democracy. He edited this book, which I will hopefully, with Donna's help, give away. He also did a book called Democracy in Small Groups. He has written a book called Politics and Communication, so really looking at deliberative citizen involvement and the possibilities of citizen involvement. He came to Edmonton, which is exciting because Edmonton is trying to be, through the center and the city, largely an innovator in citizen involvement. So he came and gave a talk that's on the center's website about the 4 glimpses of democracy's future. He talked about the BC Citizens Assembly. He talked about participatory budgeting in Brazil. He talked about India, and he talked about, in the state of Oregon, the Citizens Initiative Review. Beside him is Councillor Libovici, who is a big force behind the center and really looking at what Edmonton could do to contribute to this field. And Dr. Marco Adria, who's a faculty member at the University of Alberta in Extension, who was also instrumental in getting the center off the ground and was the academic lead on the citizens panel on the budget, which I'll talk about. But I think this photo just demonstrates, citizens are there too behind, what is really critically needed and possible to bring together these different folks, and it's really important to bring them together to really think through and understand and innovate and experiment in citizen involvement. So now I'm going to talk, as I'm talking faster and faster as the less time I have, about one project that the center did, which was a citizens panel on the budget in 2009. So this was a pilot project, so this predated actually the very existence of the center. So this was, again, in a deliberative citizen opportunity. So trying to address some of these challenges of citizen involvement that Peter talked about, that I just mentioned, and harness and create sort of an opportunity, an experiment. So the center is set up to sort of be a test bed, so trying to do something innovative. So it brought 50 citizens that were both randomly recruited and recruited, and they spent 6 full Saturdays looking at the city budget. So looking at and then providing recommendations and understanding how the budget process worked. So how was the citizen panel structured? there is a really critical piece, which is learning. And so that is really, really, really important in citizen involvement, that there is a lot of attention and rigor put to the kind of learning opportunities, that citizens have opportunities to become competent and informed in the issue or the area or the theme in which they are providing recommendations. So, and in the center, I think through a number of projects has learned a lot about how you do that well. And it's also very important in how the issue is framed, that the information that participants and citizens are given is balanced. It has a number of different perspectives represented, but that there is sufficient time and resources and tools given to citizens to learn. Then there's a process of deliberation where, again, the structures are put in place where citizens can look at trade-offs, priorities, look deeply at their values, look at individual interest and public good. So really a process and structure to deliberate, and then providing some recommendations. So that's how the citizen panel was structured. They had different presentations from members of council, from different administration in the city, so really learning deeply about what was involved in city budget and the complexity of that. And so now I just want to, this group of 50 citizens came together over 6 Saturdays. They provided a full set of written recommendations that was given to the city. And so what kind of impact do these processes have? I'd like to just talk about that a little bit. And here are some, I think, important criteria for evaluation, not just in this project, but projects in general, I think. The first is representativeness. So who was included to participate in this project? And so the center, so in this project, random recruitment was undertaken, so a list of both phone and cell phone landlines, so people were randomly called and asked to participate in the citizen panel on the budget. So some of the criteria that were put in place, trying to get a very representative group, so like a mini public of Edmonton, so gender balance, age balance, income, educational levels, wards. So a lot of rigor was put into randomly recruiting people, but ensure that they did reflect and look like what Edmonton looks like demographically. There was also targeted recruitment done to within some inner city agencies and for youth to get some of the harder to reach people to ensure that the 50 people there really looked like a broader Edmonton. So I think it's really, really important that this is, and that was, we really strive to do that. In some more recent projects, we've also done we've done screening and recruitment using attitudinals also, so looking at people's trust in government, looking at some of the particular themes and topics of that particular project as well to ensure that there's attitudinal diversity also. Influence, I think, is another really critical piece that the whole project has connection to and impact on the decision being made, so that people really have that connection to decision makers. So in really ensuring that that's a critical element of this project, in the citizen panel on the budget, council had made the commitment to seriously consider their recommendations, and that was made really clear to the participants from the front, and that city council then did a full report back to citizens on their recommendations, and that was in written form as well. So influence. And also, I think that it's really critical that citizens perceive and feel that that their work will have a clear input. Early involvement, I think this is somewhat self-explanatory, but just that the process has been designed early enough that there still is an opportunity for their input to have an impact, and it really has meaningful impact on the decision being made. Deliberative opportunities. So have members of the public been able to engage in dialogue and have the opportunities to look at trade-offs, look at priorities, to look at values? I've already talked about that. And I think this is really, really a critical piece that's built into the whole design of these processes. And also that there's skills developed in dialogue and not debate, which is often the common sort of ways in which citizen involvement activities are developed. Another one is transparency. So have members of the public been able to access information and to observe the process throughout its stages? One of the pieces of the citizen panel on the budget, it was live streamed. That became a very costly endeavor, but I think just ensuring that there is a connection from this smaller group of 50 or 60 citizens, that there is connection and communicating back out to the general public. Some of the work the center is doing is also researching, does the general public who sees a kind of process like a citizen panel happening have an impact itself on just the sort of trust and efficacy that the general public has. So I think it's really critical that there is transparency, that there is an opportunity for members of the public to know that these kinds of processes are happening, what are the recommendations about them, and be able to connect through social media, through technology back out. I think another important criteria for evaluation, and we really, is to develop citizenship skills. I think this is really, really critical that citizens have opportunities to develop capacity in deliberation, in dialogue, in understanding complexities of decision making. An example is some of the participants that have been involved in citizen panels are now coming back and in other projects as note takers, as facilitators, so really building up capacity of citizens. And has the project, as the citizen panel on the budget very much did, enhanced the knowledge and their understanding of citizenship more generally. And I think another key aspect of developing citizenship skills, as the citizen panel on the budget had that full report back to citizens, so helping citizens when there is a feedback mechanism, they can understand how is my input used or not, and that so it also enhances and builds their understanding of decision making, of the complexity of some of these issues, and supports that as well. How am I doing for time? Good? Yeah. So these were some, I think, some key criteria for impact, for evaluation that were looked at the citizen panel, and future projects that we're doing. Really, I think these are some of the key criteria that are really important in terms of assessing the impact of citizen processes. Another key piece is also, how is the issue framed? Were citizens given a balanced information that represented a broad perspectives of different stakeholders, of different people, that there is opportunities for them to reflect on and dialogue about and look and examine different perspectives. And so the framing of the issue and the framing of the budget and the materials that were given were looked at very carefully. In a recent project that we've done, we've actually pulled together a citizens reference group where a group of citizens actually comes and tests the information and looks at them before it's then, brought into a big citizen panel project. So framing of the issues. And again, something I've already talked about, the quality of learning opportunities, that citizens are given the full opportunities to really develop learning and competence in an issue. And so again, this is just around representativeness, and I've already talked about that. So I just wanted to talk and give you some examples of some of the impact, again, from the perspectives of participants. And this is another one going back to the whole criteria of deliberativeness, that participants have the opportunity to, when they weigh trade-offs and priorities, that their opinions and ideas may shift over time. And this is an area of research that the center is looking at. You do a pre-survey before the panelists start in the process, and then at the end, and you really see this happening where, given the opportunities and resources to learn over time, that opinion and attitudes on a topic does shift. So here's some examples of that. And some of the impact on citizens as well. My minority voice was heard. So again, the importance of having a really diverse and broad representative group of citizens that go beyond the usual suspects. Here's a perspective from a city staff. Again, just how important, and to see the kind of commitment and the kind of willingness of citizens to really to give up 6 Saturdays to really look at the budget process, and how, again, as Peter mentioned, we're seeing over and over how willing and open and that people want to participate. So again, that's an example from one of the city staff, and from Edmonton City Council also, that this process had an impact on decision makers itself, that they could see the level of both involvement and knowledge of citizens, and that they were giving, again, more than just a top-of-mind opinion, that over time, with the resources and tools, were able to really provide some really critical input. And that's one of the big areas of learning as well, that the center is developing and working on, that how do you really support citizens, working with city council, working with scholars to really provide quality recommendations. And I think that's learned over and evolves over time as well. Lessons learned, I think we've learned a lot about how you design these kinds of processes, from, like Margaret talked about, the facilitators involved, the processes in which you take people through to learn about a topic and then develop quality recommendations, that you can ask big questions. There really need for research, for more and more evidence about these kinds of processes. Do they have impacts on decisions that are being made do they have impacts on participants? What kinds of? So I think the really important need for further and really good quality research. And so all of the projects that the center is involved does have obviously a critical research component. again, just more and more opportunities for scholars, practitioners, and policymakers to collaborate, to really experiment and to advance this area of work and to understand. A big one, I think, is around sustaining engagement. When you build the capacity of participants, they come together over 6 Saturdays, what happens at the end of that project? And as I mentioned, we've had participants come back as facilitators and note takers. So I think this whole question of that you're sustaining engagement beyond just one project is really, really critical. And so now we've had more than 100 participants come as citizen panelists. We've trained 40 to 80 note takers and facilitators. So creating this sort of culture and community and institutionalization of engagement, I think, is really important, but that we continue to provide opportunities. The whole question of digital engagement, one of the big questions of the center is just understanding the role of technology. And that's been a big learning in some of the citizen panels. The one we have right now as well also is using the participants within the citizen panel itself have a participant website, so they also have a forum and a place to interact between sessions and to expand their learning as well, so online and digital engagement. And just the importance, I think, and the need and the opportunity that citizen panels provide to really address some of these complex and wicked problems, that when we can harness the collective wisdom and knowledge of citizens, I think that's really needed in some of the issues that we are really needing to solve, and we really need the resources of citizens. So in a more recent project, you can just see the Center for Public Enrollment website. We do have some videos that we did document a recent citizen panel project, so that gives you a snapshot of what that process is like for the people involved. And then there's other resources as well as the John Gastel talk I mentioned. So thank you very much.